By year 2020, at least in our presentation also today, spoken about it, I'm extremely excited about the potential of non-store or e-retailing. So the headline would be like this, that by 2020, at least in top 75 cities in India, which would be, let's say, cities of 1 million population or more, we are believing that 30 to 35% of entire merchandise shopping, will be online. And across all urban India, we are projecting about 20% would be the share of online shopping, followed by traditional mom and pop stores, which on an all India urban basis, 50 to 55% could be the share. And traditional brick and mortar stores, unfortunately, we think that they're going to stagnate their share. They'll grow from now, but not in the same proportion as other channels would be. The limitations we just talked about, no real estate availability. It's not only a developer's fault, but if the space is not there, it's very expensive. If it is very expensive, the physical retailer makes no money. You start blaming each other. But the solution lies with the government. Reduce the price of land, encourage people to create more retail space, and then I think everybody will be happy in this.
One, I would say is, I would like to see the organized retail as a total part of the Indian retail to be about 30%. I think they're about 7% today. So I would like to see that over the next 7 years grow 4 times of what they are today. So from 7% to 30%. Second, I'm passionate about the organized retail real estate space. Today, if you were to look at it, the organized retail real estate space per capita is about 2 square feet per capita. I would like to see that to move to 20 square feet per capita. And the third is that I would love the industry to continue to contribute to the GDP growth of this country, as well as continue to generate more and more employment, so that there is an inclusive growth within the Indian economy.
I think the first thing which will make news is that you will have a retail industry which crosses $1 trillion in terms of market size. China today is about $2.5 trillion. The United States today is about $4.5 trillion. We are about $0.5 trillion. So we should at least try and make sure that the industry size doubles in the course of the next 7 years to $1 trillion. That's one. The second thing which I think would be very heartwarming is to find 4 Indian retail groups occupying positions 1, 2, 3 and 4. And I think if we can build that capability and we can build that scale in Indian retail groups, then that I think will be another huge thing. And the third would be that you will have a multi-channel environment. So classical brick and mortar stores will have a certain contribution. E-commerce stores will certainly be contributing anywhere between 10 to 15% of the total market which exists, and customers will have a choice of sitting in their homes, buying anything that they want from their homes, or walking into stores and buying anything that they want to buy from stores, and to have all of the prime international brands available in this country for customers to buy. And I think these 3 key aspects, size of the market, large domestic retail players occupying the top positions, and the customer having a wide choice of brands, products, as well as shopping choices, those 3 I think would be certainly the most important things to look for in 2020.
I would definitely think brick and mortar would still be very important, because retail is not just about cost and things like that. Retail is all about experience. I think consumers and shoppers will continue to shop and want to enjoy that process of shopping. So I would think there would still be a lot of brick and mortar. As I said, I think consumers would like to be treated as individuals, and hence I would like to see more and more unique things popping up. Today, unfortunately, whether you go to Bombay or you go to Delhi or Singapore or London, it's probably the same set of brands which are occupying most of this thing. Gone are the days when you could walk into a town and you could have something unique about that town. That's why we love traveling to different parts of the world, and that uniqueness. So I'm looking back for those local flavors to emerge, and I think by 2020 I would see more local things rather than replication of the same formula across markets. Third, I don't know, I'm sure we'll see something that's there which we've not seen yet, and I'm sure there'll be something new at that point in time. Those are the 3 things I would say.
I think if we kind of pan forward into 2020, the kind of headlines that we would see in the media, probably the first one we'd see is that the Indian consumer has arrived. I think organized retail as a concept is still in its infancy right now in India. And as we move ahead, it's going to be the mainstay for the Indian shoppers. So we're going to see malls come into a big way for Indian shoppers. So that's one big headline that we're going to see. We are also going to see the amalgamation of international retail with a very specific Indian cultural nuance as well. What that will be, only time will tell in terms of its evolution, but we are not going to look at a kind of copybook approach in terms of just photocopying what's happening internationally and kind of applying it to India. It's going to be the evolution of Indian retail in its fullest form. So we'll see that specifically. And I think lastly, we're going to see the evolution of Indian retail spaces across the length and breadth of the country in varying formats. You'll have large, full-size, all under one roof malls. You'll have high street, which will have its own in terms of actually appealing to customers. And you'll have smaller shopping arcades appealing to a different set of audiences. So we're going to see a very interesting mix of retail in its entire gamut of evolution as we move forward.
Well, I would like and forget envision. What I would like in 2020 is that there are banners and headlines which say that there's no piracy at all of films. That's one for sure, because that's eating away into the entire value chain. Number two is content on demand, which will be there everywhere. So a person will not have to wait for a show to start at a particular time. There'll be, I think so, ample screens, and it'll be like a movie starting after every 10-15 minutes.
Well, on one end, I am also a pessimist when it comes to multi-brand retail and whether that gets opened up or not. But I'm hoping that by 2020, at least that will happen. And that should, at any given point in time between now and then, should be a big headline. That's for sure. The other, the other big headline that I expect is that you know, the Indian retail market has been showing in the last, since 2013 to 2020, a growth of X%. And that's an exciting X% rather than a single-digit X%. Well, I'll be personally happy when if at least we maintain a CAGR of between 20 to 25%, which may be a bit of a call, but in certain segments, and I think large segments, that is entirely possible, even if we were to assume nothing changes.
We would expect Indian rupee to be 40. We would expect, I don't think it will happen. We would expect to have good international shopping malls, good infrastructure, logistics, I would put 4. Logistics being very important. To shift goods from Mumbai to Delhi is difficult. You have to know the systems, a lot of paperwork. We would like that to go away. The headline would be, one country, one paperwork to transfer products from one city to another. That's a challenge for us.
I mean, from retailing perspective, one headline I would like to see is that probably 25% of our total retail has gotten organized. On the food service side, I would say, 50% of our food service is got organized. And third headline probably would be that India is the third largest, food service consumer, out-of-home food service consumer in the world.
I think investment norms in terms of real estate, retail real estate at least, would be, revised, and people would, the government would allow for an investment into real estate, retail real estate, if possible, so as to developers have more access to money to create centers like this. And the second one, I think we would be more happy with, is to see more international brands coming into the country, which would mean again a relaxation in the FDI norms, so that when we build larger centers, better centers, then we have to have occupants to occupy, brands to occupy them. And as much as Indian brands are there, they're developing, we would need, and this is pretty evident all over the world, that these global brands do make a difference in the shopping environment of the place.
I'd like to see
a fivefold increase in the number of brands. I'd love to see that. I'd love to see retail concepts which have a connect with the youth of today and the young people of today. Unfortunately, and I think this is a big issue we are missing here, many of the brands and many of the retail concepts don't have a connect with the 20 and 25-year-olds today who are going to be your consumers for the next 20 years. I'd love to see that. And I'd love to see, I think, a shopping center industry which is far more vibrant, which is more diverse, and which is much more local in terms of flavor and appeal.
Okay, the first and foremost would be retail will be the largest contributor to India's GDP. The second would be retail is the largest employer in the private sector space in the country by far. And the third would be contribution towards building infrastructure. That is more meaningful and contributes to building a much more rounded and more responsible society.
I foresee a large Indian retailer, an Indian real estate developer in the Fortune 100. And the second thing is, of course, that we should have a lot more acquisitions, the multi-billion-dollar acquisitions being announced. We keep hearing murmurs now, but they really don't fructify, and we think that that's the way I foresee, there should be multi-billion-dollar acquisitions and huge REIT funds happening. The scale will be much, much larger. Like someone just commented in the forum that, if you compare it to other Asian countries like even Indonesia, and the scale is not there as yet. So I think we would have achieved that scale and we'd be making waves there because, we have the numbers, we have the aspiring population. We just need to make that bridge with right businesses.